Hi, welcome to Beginning Drawing with Professor Joyce. I am getting ready to teach my first online video lesson. I am putting some of my materials on my drawing board. I've got an H pencil, I've got erasers, a 2B, and a darker pencil for shading, which could be a 6 or 8B or an ebony. Mine happens to be a General's Layout pencil. I have used tape to tape my paper to my board. My paper is about 14 by 17. What I'm going to start off by doing though is I'm going to grab my H pencil so I can make a picture plane to work on this scene of Building 9 at Cal Poly. What I'm going to do, I'm using an H pencil. I'm going to have to use it pretty dark so that you guys see it on the camera. And I'm going to make a picture plane of about 6 by 9. I'm not using a ruler. In fact, I try not to use a ruler as often as I can because it actually helps my skill level and helps me draw straight lines a lot faster. But on this drawing, now and then, you are probably going to want to use a ruler. Now let's dissect our picture of Building 9. The horizon line is in the middle of the building, a bit low. I know that because the bottom of the building and the top, there's a vanishing point right here. And then when I look at this, there's a vanishing point right here where the tip of my pencil is. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to make that horizon line in my picture plane not quite in the middle, but a bit below. And I'm going to start by putting in my first vanishing point. I'm going to put it about here. It's going to still be on the picture plane, but if you look at the other side, let's measure the width of this side of the building that far. Doesn't that look really close to where our vanishing point is going to be? So what that tells me is that if I start the building here, then the vanishing point would be double that. So I'm going to use a white marker and make a vanishing point there. Can you see it? Right here. Okay. Now I'm going to start looking at the building. The building has two very large planes for the sides. It's hard to see, but there's a giant building behind here, which is, I think, for engineering, and we're going to put that in. I have a tremendous area of sky, very large sidewalk area, and a section of street. So I'm going to start by putting this building in first. It's an easy thing to go from the vanishing point to the top of the building. You can use a ruler for that if you want. I'm just going to practice my sketching skills. I can use a ruler for this side, or I can practice my sketching skills. So let me put in the last congruent line for the top, and there we have the building. What I can do now, I can put in the sidewalk. It's about here, so I'm going to mark that. Did you notice how I sighted that angle? I look at the angle, pull it down, and then just draw it. if you can sight really well, you almost don't have a need for rulers. For instance, sighting the top of the building, pull it down, same angle. Sighting the bottom of the building, pull it down, same angle. I could do this whole thing with no ruler, just strictly by sighting angles, and it would go really, really fast. So here's about where the sidewalk might be. And the sidewalk on this side, I'm gonna make that about here. It's quite skinny. And then I'm gonna put in the building that is way to the left. Notice that the corner of it is about here, so I will throw that in. The angle for that, yep, about there. And the angle there, yeah, it works. Okay, so I got the building in. I think what I want to do is I want to put in this big tree. Want to put in maybe this white tree, one of these, a couple of people, a few signs, but maybe not all these trees here. I think I'll pass on that. Let's see, I think I'll start by putting the tree in here. It kind of has a nice... Alrighty, we're back to our lesson on two-point perspective building. I'm at the point now where I really need to make decisions, design decisions. How do I want this drawing to look when I'm done? Do I want to put everything in? All the people, all the little signs, all the trees, all the bricks? No, I don't. I just want to put important things for the design in. So let's see, I would probably go with this large tree. I would go with the white tree against the building. That's a nice juxtaposition. I think I'm going to lose some of these trees and bushes there. I will put in a few signs. I'll probably put in this guy because it's a great shot. He's looking at his phone. Maybe this lady, but I'll see what I need to see. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to block in the large tree. Now, in looking at where to position the tree, let's overlook the whole picture plane. The corner of the building is to the right of the center of the composition. It's good it's not completely in the center. That would be way too symmetrical, so I'm glad it's a little bit off center. Nevertheless, it's about midway through the picture plane. This large tree is about a quarter of the way through the picture plane. So you've got 1/4, 2/4, 3/4 is in the blocks of windows, and 4, there's more palm trees. So I'm going to start sketching that tree in about here. And what I'm using a 2B, but when you guys do this, you may want to use an H, as it is a construction sketch and you might want to erase it later. It's got an interesting kind of S-curve here. So I'm going to exaggerate that a little bit. Remember, the tree's going to get skinnier and skinnier as it goes up higher. Okay, here's my main bulk of this tree. Here, the main trunk. It's got some interesting branches. I'll put those in. Here's one. I'll do it a little darker for you guys. Going to hit this going a little bit up. Here's an interesting kind of wiggly one I want to put in, which is located here. I will put this one in. It goes up off the picture plane, which is nice to have some items actually move off your picture plane so that it's not all composed with a humongous margin. Let's see, now we're going to put in one over here. I will put it in a little lower than what the picture tells me to do. Okay, and a tiny one there, which is good. I'll kind of drop that one down. Well, here's what I've got so far. So I added in these 3 figures, and notice that the figure in front, per terms of scale, is going to be pretty large, so you have to note where anybody's head aligns and where their feet align. For instance, they're only 20 feet away, but this guy is twice as large as this lady, so I had to make that work, so be careful of that. I did put in some blocks of ivy here. I'm going to put ivy here. Notice that whatever I am drawing at this point, this is a layout stage, and I am doing a structural transparent. I'm not erasing anything as I go. I can see right through everything I'm drawing, and that's going to help me out. I know I'm going to put a bunch of leaves here later because they look good. I put the top on the wall here. I decided not to put in a bunch of palm trees because I really like this empty space. Negative space here really sets off all this activity over on this side. But I think over the ivy, I would pick and choose a few of the signs to put in. Remember, don't put them in everywhere, just here and there. Now at this point, with my 2B and my 6B or my 4B, or maybe all 3, I'm going to start shading. One thing I've decided is that my light source needs to come from this area. The sky does look lighter here. If I look at the back building, the facade on the right is catching light and it's somewhat in shadow on the left. Not very noticeable, kind of subtle, but you have to look for such clues. Then this wall clearly has sunshine on the top, but it's shadowed on the vertical plane. So what I'm going to do, I went ahead and I put some pigment down on this side of the building. And also, even though this building's got kind of a white with brick facade, I'm going to shade it just a little bit to differentiate it from the right side. And I will also put a little pigment down for the little fence. Incidentally, I went ahead and I made my composition just a little bit wider because I wanted to shorten the building so I could put in a little bit of that hillside that's behind our building there. That would be kind of cool in the composition, I think. Right now I have kind of blended those cursory shadows in. I'm going around kind of cleaning up some of the shadowed bits. At this point, what you may want to do, but you don't have to, is you can clean up some of your construction lines, like the ones for the trees. The trees are going to be, there goes my wiggly table again. I'm going to hold on to this cell phone. So I will spend a few minutes on the cleanup and then I'll come right back. Okay, I've done a little bit of cleanup on the building and I'm going to go around, do a little bit of cleanup on the people. I think the trees are okay right now. My plan is to start shading the trees and then go back in and clean them up a little bit. So here's where I am right now. I've shaded in the bulk of the windows. I am not putting details like window panes in. I'm just going with a general area. And as you can see, I think there's like 8 or 9 of these partitions here. I only put in 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you want to minimize your drawing and edit out a lot of the busy stuff, feel free to do so. Just make it work. At this point, I'm going to start shading the trees, and then I'll get back to you. Been shading the trees, and now what I'm going to do with this tree that I erased against the dark wall is when the dark wall ends and moves into a white area, I'm going to flip the black and white of it so that the tree limbs show dark against the light sky, but when the tree limbs are against the dark wall, they show light. So remember that when things show contrast in your drawings, they will really pop and be very apparent to those of your audience actually looking at them. Now, because I'm trying to shade these windows and trees quickly, I am going to use a blending stick somewhat to kind of smooth certain areas out. Although you don't want to go ultra smooth, remember texture. You guys did really great on texture with your still life, so continue it now as we're working on perspective. Try to make the buildings, the trees, the sky all have different textures. I'm putting a bit of a sky tone right now. Notice that I'm holding my pencil from the back end for a very loose and sketchy look. And notice that I'm also running past my picture plane edges just because I'm doing this very broadly, and I know that I can clean that up later quite easily. Okay, now I'm cleaning it up. If you kind of plan your shading steps out beforehand, you can make it all go a lot faster by using some simple application and erasing steps. Like for instance, what you could do, like our last assignment, is you could tape the border on this picture plane so that you wouldn't have to do that kind of erasing. So I'm not doing that, but you could do it. Okay, now that's done. So I scribbled a couple people in, and I'm ready to put the cracks in the sidewalk, and they're gonna go back to my point right over here. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little pivot number. Am I going to do the split line schema? Nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to try my best to make them go smaller and smaller as they go back. Now, if I would put cracks in this sidewalk, they would go to this other point. And they'd be quite wide the closer they are to the foreground, and then they'd get really close as they recede back in space. So at this point, you know, like I could do some details on the curbs. You know, normally I wouldn't do this, but this is a perspective drawing assignment, so these kinds of details, you probably want to cover it. So I'm making the sidewalk crack go vertically through the curb. And I'll probably want to draw some of this hill dirt right here next. And I probably want to draw in some of the asphalt street. So when I do that, I'm going to go with kind of a scribbling gesture. I'm holding the pencil by the back, and I'm going to make the lines go with the flow of the street, not against it. Anytime you can follow the form of anything when you shade, it's going to add a certain richness and beauty and description of the form to your drawing, and it will be much more evocative. Now, I'm gonna sit down, take a good look at this, try to figure out what else I really need to do to make this drawing better, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, here it is roughly finished. I tried to put in a lot of gray tones. I tried to take note of the light source. Did I do a super finished, fantastic drawing? No, because this is just homework, but I would like you to try to shade it and try to put some details in as well. Finished, mine is about 6 by 9 roughly. You can make it a little smaller or a little bit bigger. Don't go too big or you will be drawing all week on it. This can be due next Monday, I think.